Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission: to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Elkins Movie Club. It's Elkins Movie Club. Elkins Movie Club. It's Elkins Movie Club.
With Kent Wolgamon of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Hi, Kent.
Hi, Kent.
Hello. Welcome to your last Friday before you
Oh.
have to get ready for going to a football game the next day.
Oh boy, and what a football game I'll have to get ready to go to.
It's going to be great, Kent. It's football, so we're not allowed to complain. It's football.
Here's Josh coming to the defense of football.
It's football.
It's UTEP, maybe historically the worst program in Division I or whatever.
Kent, they tackle, they throw, they run, they return
know.
kicks and punts, maybe.
I think we have a goal this year, and that is that Nebraska needs to at least threaten Evil Kent's prediction for them.
52-38,
Just
something like
the
that.
50, just the 52 part.
Oh, in this game?
Yeah.
That'd be
I
sweet.
think that would that's very reachable.
But if it's 52-38 in this opener,
Oh.
there's going to be some panic in the streets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
It's gonna roll if they give up 38.
But
the
that's
Miners.
next. But that's next.
That's
week.
next week. Yeah, we got to get down to
The
business.
summer is not over yet.
No, it is not.
And the movie this week was picked by Nick. It's on Netflix. It is The World's Fastest Indian.
Mhm.
Nick, what's it about?
Not problematic. It refers to the Indian Motorcycles,
I know.
which is a brand.
Yep.
I
saw
only
it.
preface that because last night I watched it with my girlfriend and her roommate, and I said the title of the movie, and her roommate was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, no, hold on. But it's about
That was my reaction to when Nick named the movie, by the way. I was like, what?
it's about Burt Munro, who, at least in this movie, is the world's most nice and wholesome old man from New Zealand
He really is.
who loves
Well,
motorcycles.
I'm glad you approve of an old person. For
I
once,
love him.
Josh.
Who played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. He loves motorcycles. He just wants to go fast. He's got an Indian motorcycle from 1920
Mhm.
that he's been slowly working on and souping up over the last, I don't know, math. This takes
40
place in
years.
40 years.
Yeah.
And his goal is to go to the salt flats and just open her up, see how fast she can go. And the first part of the movie is him raising the money to get to it, and then it's just kind of his adventure. It's as much about going to the salt flats and going fast as it is about the adventure and the people he meets along the way, and just how
All the hijinks he gets into.
wholesome and accepting he is as a man in 1965.
Is that when it's set? 65?
It's the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid explanation for the movie.
Also, spoiler, nobody died, and I loved that. That
Wow.
made me so happy.
Well, yeah. Here's
This was
another
such a
spoiler.
feel-good
Not
movie.
Not every
Well,
movie
no, but
features
he's
death.
sick though the whole time.
He's sick. They keep foreshadowing it. They keep alluding to
Yeah.
it. There's so many times where
And
it feels
then-
like that because I didn't know the story of Burt Munro.
Yeah,
I
and
had
then
no
the title
idea.
screen comes up and it's like, and he went back a million more times. I was like, Nick, I thought he was definitely going to die.
I was so
I
glad
thought he might
that he
die
didn't.
in an accident.
Like we were making jokes throughout the movie that it's like, oh, he's gonna die before he even gets there because of his heart problems, or it's like, oh, this
He's
person's just gonna
popping
die.
pills to live. Pills are good. Pills are good.
I think it says something about where we are because all three of us watching that movie last night were expecting at least one person in this movie to die.
Yeah, he didn't die.
Whether it was that lady that was he cheated on his girlfriend with a lady,
Of course he did.
but like we thought maybe
Oh,
she
he's
died.
so wholesome.
We thought maybe she had died. You know, like he got up and like she wasn't.
Okay,
She
I
wasn't
thought the
moving,
same thing.
But then we were like, no, but it
But
looked like
she
she
is
was breathing.
I
It's
thought
like,
the same
maybe
thing.
that was him breathing.
Yep. Why are you shaking your head so much?
It felt almost intentional.
It did.
This
That
is-
was definitely intentional.
Of all the things to come to a conclusion about this movie is you guys are like reacting like, oh my God, nobody died.
That wasn't my main takeaway, but Nick saying it does remind me that I thought you didn't
Because
think he would die. Did you know the story of this though?
There was so much
I honestly did
foreshadowing.
not know. I honestly did not know the story.
Yeah, I was stunned that he didn't die.
I was so happy about this. This movie made me feel nice. It was edited kind of weird at times, and it didn't always hold my attention, but I liked it.
Yeah, I think on Letterboxd I wrote heartwarming, if not a little weird. And I
Yeah.
think that is kind of a good explanation
Well,
for
the
the movie.
story, Ken, is a little weird in and of itself.
He's a weird guy.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And
Prostate problems.
it's kind of true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were here's the back story on this, which is really, this guy is sort of a New Zealand hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the director's a guy named Roger Donaldson, who has made some really good movies, or one really good movie that I like, 13 Days, but he also made No Way Out. He's a Kiwi. He's from New Zealand. And he kind of always wanted to make this movie. And so by the, well, what is this, like a 2005? Something like that?
2005 is when it came
2005.
out.
By that time, he had enough heft that he could get the movie made. And so it was all shot in New Zealand, or at least the first, whatever it is, third of it, or before he leaves. That's all in New Zealand. Everything that happened in New Zealand is filmed in New Zealand. And then, of course, everything else is in LA and also at the Bonneville Salt Flats. They changed some elements in the story to make for a better story. Okay. So I don't think the girlfriend's part even existed in real life, right?
Okay.
The one from New Zealand or the other one?
Both,
Okay.
right? I think that was just added. But the general outline even to the point where he talks about his brother getting hit by a tree, killed by a falling tree when he's talking to the little boy in the first part of the movie, that happened. That really happened. And then pretty much, if not exactly what happened on the way, it's close enough. Like he had to get the money and get through customs and all of that. There are a couple alterations at Bonneville. They wouldn't call this movie. This is a worst title of a movie ever.
It's
but-
horrible.
Mhm.
But they wouldn't call the movie The World's Fastest Indian if he wasn't going to end up being the world's fastest Indian. So I don't
Yes.
think I'm giving anything away.
Yeah.
They said record was 280, or he went over 200 miles an hour. The
Mhm.
record is not over 200 miles an hour. It's like 185, and it still stands. And the actual motorcycle is in a hardware store in that town where he's from.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
So this is a very New Zealand movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing, and I agree with all the heartwarming and sort of feel good movie, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. The only thing that offset me, and it did it again this time, is I had in one case some very good friends from New Zealand, and there is a definite Kiwi accent.
Mm-hmm.
And you could hear it in some of the other New Zealanders that were actually cast. Anthony Hopkins still sounds like he's from England.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Ken, because it's
I love
always
the Kiwi accent.
it's
I do
always
too.
interesting to me, accents, and occasionally you'll get the British comedian who then does the mocking American accent, and it's funny to realize how we all talk differently based on where we're from. But it's particularly interesting to me that here you have a British actor who is playing a Kiwi, and while he definitely tries to hit those notes, and it's definitely not the classic Anthony Hopkins, I was curious what you thought of Anthony Hopkins, trying to sound like he is from New Zealand.
But I do think this is one of his, of the 8 million movies and TV shows that Anthony Hopkins has done, he's still he's got a new series on, what is it? Is it on Peacock? And he's almost 90, right?
That's
Yeah.
wild.
So he's been making movies for 60 years, 70 years. and so he's got a bazillion of them. I think it's one of his better performances, right? Because he kind of anchors the whole thing as this sort of lovable, eccentric old dude, right?
He really nails old, like wholesome old guy. Even his outfits, because even had shirts that say Indian, like the brand. And it's like, of course, a guy this obsessed with it would have merch.
Yeah, there's like a little lost in translation about it, right? Where he's an older and he's talking to younger people, so there's already going to be the bit of a disconnect. But he's also from an entirely different country, and so sometimes he's saying things, or someone is saying something to him, and he is just very much confused, and they are very much confused. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
That some of that is also pretty funny. You
Yeah,
know?
I think so too. Yeah, he was. I haven't seen, Kent, a ton of Anthony Hopkins. I'll be honest. I've seen, 2 or 3 of the Hannibal movies, including we did
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs, and I've seen him in maybe a few others. So when I think of him, I only think of Silence of the Lambs. And so to see him in this movie, it's like, it's a really good reminder of how great of an actor he is, because I thought that he played that character, a very heartwarming, nice person very, very well.
Well, I saw a story on Hopkins said this was one of the easiest roles he ever had because he thought that the Monroe character had an outlook on life very similar to his own. So he was almost playing himself as a Kiwi.
That's interesting. Yeah, if you want to look at some Anthony Hopkins pictures, it'll show you a range.
Yeah,
the Remains of the Day. He just won which is like from the late 80s, and he just won the Oscar maybe 5 years ago for the father playing a guy that has got Alzheimer's.
Okay,
and he played Nixon.
He did.
Yeah, and he was very good at that. I mean, I could go through 10 of them, but though if you watch those 3 movies and this one, it's like it's almost hard to believe it's the same guy, which tells you what a good actor he is. And it's also shows you, okay, like there are actors of his generation, let's say, like Pacino and De Niro in particular, and Jack Nicholson especially. They played themselves. Right? Every time it's Jack Nicholson. It's just there's some shading on it. This one, he's completely 100% different. You go from Hannibal Lecter to a butler in The Remains of the Day to the guy Nixon to the guy with Alzheimer's to this guy. And every one of them are totally believable, and he nails everyone. Also, he's a great Shakespearean actor. If you can take a Shakespearean movie, he's Titus. He plays in that one. Okay, he was done with my Anthony Hopkins rant here.
No, but I would throw one other movie out there, and that's The Elephant Man.
Oh, sure.
I thought he was really good in The Elephant Man.
Completely about that.
Yeah, that's one of his early ones.
Ken, have you ever talked to him?
No, I have not. I wish I had.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Another thing I really liked about this movie, so it was made in 2005, set in like 1965 or something like that. And that female presenting person at the hotel, when he first meets them, when that person comes out to him and says who they are, he's not freaked out or anything. He's like, oh, well, you're still beautiful. And especially from 1965, a person having that outlook, but in a movie made from 2005, because there were shows where the butt of the joke was somebody just dressing as the opposite gender. So the fact that this movie had handled a situation like that in 2005 feels extremely progressive.
Yeah.
And I really liked it a lot, because even when they made a joke about it, it wasn't like a mean-spirited joke. It
seemed like a joke between friends.
Exactly. And it was just extremely well handled. And I flagged that because I don't think I'd seen that before, especially in a movie from this era.
Well, I think that was done intentionally to show just how this character's outlook on life is so unique, right?
Definitely.
I think I that would be my guess, because I'm guessing, Kent, we mentioned there's a lot of things in the movie that aren't, factually correct. I'm guessing that was another thing that was, just kind of a a sidebar, wasn't it?
I think that might have actually happened.
Okay.
But what I really think is why part of the reason why it was so accepted is you have to remember we're looking at this from our American cultural and American movies.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand has always been much more, quote, progressive, for lack of a better way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even some Aboriginal, the people there who I can't remember, Maoris, I believe, there is a cross-dressing thing within that culture in New Zealand. So I think some of that is the cultural part that sneaks through in this movie as well.
Okay.
Kemp, the movie itself, like who is the audience for this movie, do you think?
The first audience was the people of New Zealand.
Because
this is a very small country. I mean, it's not,
because I'd literally never heard of this movie. And so when I fired it up, and knowing a little bit, just, given what Nick had said about it last week, I'm like, okay, is this it's kind of a family uplifting movie in the end, but I was just watching it like, it's certainly not awards bait, right? Given that it's such a smaller movie.
No, and it was made because he wanted to make the movie about this New Zealand hero or legend or whatever you want to call him. And that was the primary audience, was New Zealand, and it connected here and also around the world, really. But if you look, one of the ways you can tell that is if you looked at the production credit at the very first whatever films, you didn't see Warner Brothers or whatever.
No.
It was some small releasing company, right?
Yep.
So it was made to be shown in New Zealand, Australia, whatever, primarily, and then it moved across the world.
Interesting.
Another quick sidebar in this movie, and it kind of took me out of it just a little bit because of how my brain works, but his name was Bert, and he was talking about his brother Ernie.
Oh,
I didn't notice that.
Every time I heard that, I just paused.
Guess I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. I like, as someone who enjoys, motorsports, I enjoyed the scenes at Bonneville.
I didn't know a whole lot about that area.
Bonneville's cool.
Bonneville, I mean, it's because of the salt in that part of the world.
Absolutely.
It's just as flat as a table. And this is where all the land speed records are contested because it is the perfect natural surface.
Is it because of its flatness or because of something about the
hardness of the salt, but it's very flat
and it's dry.
Very dry.
Rain, so they can be out there and run and not have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, engines don't run well in humidity. So there's a little bit of that.
Can you just go there, or do you have to is it like a protected kind of area?
No, you can go there when there's usually not cars out there. They only do these trials every so often.
Do they do it a lot? Okay, so on a regular basis, is it just people visiting it and looking at it?
My girlfriend, some of her friends got married out in the Salt Flats. Yeah,
it looked cool.
And if you're remotely interested in this, here's a free plug for the Lincoln's what would I say, least known great place to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Museum of American Speed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out in west part of Lincoln, and it's probably now at this point the country's largest collection of, mostly it's race cars, hot rods, and they have other stuff,
engines, pedal cars,
cars, all kinds of stuff. But they have a whole section of I don't remember seeing any motorcycles in the Bonneville section but they have a lot of like 3 or 4 of the quote cars, which are these long.
They look like rockets.
Mhm.
Yeah, dynamically
Yeah.
designed cars, and it's fun place to go. And those cars, you look at that and go, I wouldn't get in that thing and go
No.
300 miles an hour.
Dude, that's what I'm thinking. Is like, especially when he brings it over and they're going through the inspection and they're just like, this is wrong. And what is going on with the tires here? And this and this and this. And
Is that a cork in the gas tank?
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? No, thank you.
No, Kent's right. I've been to the American Speed Museum, which
cool?
is it's awesome. It is amazing, and they actually moved it. I was there when Speedy Bill Smith, who was the founder of Speedway Motors, which is one of the biggest hot rod and performance and racing parts distributors in the world.
Biggest. It is the biggest.
And I went to his original location, which was out on West Van Dorn, and then they made a bigger one at Speedway Motors
And
out
they're
in West Lincoln.
and they're just about to add a whole expansion to it.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
this is like a mecca for hot rodders, auto racers, speed. I mean, many people want to go there because he's got an enormous collection. I mean, it is insane from
And
every genre of motorsport you can think of.
And they keep adding to it. They have what is arguably now the first hot rod out there, and they left it in original condition. So it's,
Oh man, that's
Whoa.
cool.
but they also just within the last 6 months acquired. I don't believe they bought. I don't know how what the arrangement is, but the Unser family collection is now going to be out there.
Oh, really? So you're going to have a lot of the Pikes Peak cars,
Like
And-
Speed
I love
and
that.
IndyCar.
Indy
Yeah.
cars. Yeah. So yeah, I need to go back out there. It's been a while since I've been there because it's always changing. Like a good museum, they're always getting new stuff, but it's really impressive. But
Couple
Yeah,
comments real
yeah,
fast.
Bonneville, by the way, it's far. It basically it's the northwest corner of Utah, so it's on the other side of the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah, Tony says I walked on the flats, and then Todd says I had friends that were just there last weekend and ran a minivan up to over 100 miles per hour.
Oh, surely a minivan can go faster.
That's a minivan.
A 4-cylinder minivan? Probably not.
That's awesome.
The minivan we have here, if you get out
a
of
little-
a light wrong, give it a little goose,
little,
it'll
little giddy up.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. What a cool little area.
Yeah, it's very very unique. But,
I like this movie. It was a
I
wholesome
did.
movie.
I enjoyed the movie. It was a good Sunday afternoon watch
Mm-hmm.
while the NASCAR race was being rained on.
Said
Well,
my,
there you go.
my main criticism was just some of the editing because it felt very quick cut. Like, do this. Oh, you can do this tomorrow. Cool. And then suddenly it's tomorrow. It was just very abrupt kind of cuts.
By the way, some of the parts that were in his shed are the actual parts from
Oh, really?
from Monroe,
I love
like
that.
the pistons that he was.
When he was, and he put it in the water.
Yeah,
That cracks metal like crazy.
yeah. And then the kid makes the pot of coffee from the
Yeah.
water.